The country of Bolivia is today among the poorest in South America. But among the very poorest in this poor country are the Ayore Indians. The Ayore are despised, vulnerable, and relatively unknown even in their own country. But God knows every tribe and nation, and God knows and loves the Ayore. On a gloomy, rainy night, in the squalor of the Indian slum on the outskirts of Santa Cruz where he lived, Beniel, an Ayore chief's son, called out to God on behalf of his young cousin, who, writhing in agony, was struggling in labor for the third day. Her body was racked with pain and fever, and death seemed to hover close in the shadows.
When Beniel, in desperation, finally called out to God, God answered. Miles away in a quiet barrio of Santa Cruz, Bolivia, husband and wife missionary doctors Placido and Tony Mercado arrived home after a strenuous day of travel. Tony felt urgently impressed to go once again to the Ayore slum encampment. Though Placido thought going out on such a night was a little crazy, he respected his wife's strong conviction and went with her. When they arrived so unexpectedly at the slum entrance, Beniel, using earthy terms that would make a sailor blush, praised God in heaven for answering his prayer. The Mercados took the young woman to the hospital. The baby was stillborn, but the mother's life was spared, and Beniel came to believe in Jesus Christ. This Jesus of whom the Mercados had so often told him. Beniel found that Jesus is the true God who answers prayer.
A radical change occurred in Beniel. He stopped his destructive drinking and drug habits immediately. A hunger to know more about this prayer-answering God took him to the AMI Bible Training Center in Brazil. As he learned about the greatness of God through Bible study, his language cleaned up, his selfish arrogance faded, and a concern for his people grew. As he approached graduation, Beniel's heart was heavy for his people. Drug abuse, prostitution, and begging were normal life for the Ayore living on the outskirts of Santa Cruz. After returning home, he began sharing the hope and strength he had received from God, who had pulled his life out of a horrible pit. Beniel knows now that only God has the power to rescue the Ayore people. The Ayore were originally a nomadic group roaming the bush in eastern Bolivia and northern Paraguay. They were notorious for their kill-or-be-killed relationship with ranchers, settlers, or anyone who dared invade their ancestral territory. In the words of Bill Pencil, one of Sam's first missionaries to the Ayore,
like Ishmael in the Bible, their hand was against every man, and every man's hand was against them.
In the 18th century, Catholic missionaries attempted to establish a Jesuit mission among them, but the Ayore disappeared into the jungle after killing the priests. In the 1930s, Sam missionary George Haight made a brief peaceful contact, but was unable to establish continuous mission work. Then, in 1943, a group of Ayore killed 5 New Tribes missionaries who were attempting to make contact. However, neither Sam nor New Tribes gave up. Aware of the inevitable encroachment of outsiders into Ayore territory, the missions knew that it was only a matter of time before bullets, disease, or slavery would wipe out their tribe. Finally, in the early 1950s, God opened the door. South American Mission worked with the Ayore for a number of years and established small fledgling churches in 2 villages.
However, it was difficult to maintain consistent work with the Ayore given the great needs across Bolivia. Then, in 1995, God called Doctors Placido and Tony Mercado to reach out once again to the Ayore. John Depew, a soon-to-retire Sam missionary, invited the Mercados to visit Poza Verde, one of the main Ayore villages. Placido, though a Bolivian himself, was shocked by the living conditions of the people. His feelings intensified after visiting Barrio Bolivar, an Ayore camp on the outskirts of the city of Santa Cruz. The camp lacked decent housing, water, and even basic sanitation. The air was heavy with the sickening smell of cocaine paste being smoked by young people lounging on the muddy ground. Young women with empty eyes stared at him and then turned away to offer themselves to a passing trucker. Unwanted children were abandoned or left in the inadequate care of grandmothers completely unprepared for rearing children under such conditions. And sadly, with no trained Indian leadership, the Ayore church seemed dead.
As a result of those first visits, the Mercados changed the focus of their lives. They decided to dedicate themselves to helping the IRA. Because they were doctors, the Mercados clearly saw the IRA's need for physical as well as spiritual help. In 1995, even though they were both still in medical school, they began regular medical and evangelistic visits to Poza Verde and Barrio Bolivar. In 1997, South America Mission invited the Mercados to join the mission. Later that same year, God brought a spiritual reawakening in the IRA camps where they were working. The IRA began coming back to their village churches. Today, the Mercados have expanded their work to include many other indigenous camps and villages, concentrating on villages where no other missions work. To join the Mercados, God has raised up a group of Bolivian and American full-time missionaries and volunteers who have a heart for the poor and for those not yet touched by God's redeeming love.
The heart of this ministry is a passion to see Jesus transform lives among the Ayore, just as he did for Beniel. Although God has called a number of missionaries to work with the Ayore, the future of the Ayore church depends on developing strong and effective Ayore church leaders. To that end, the Ayore ministry consistently invests time and money in training Ayore leaders. The heartbreak of the Ayore's situation naturally led to a holistic ministry. We believe that James 2:16 speaks to us when he says that if we see someone in need and do nothing about it, our faith is dead. It is difficult to convince people of God's love when they see that our needs and wants are provided for, but we don't help them to get life's basic necessities. Thus, health care and education so the Ayore can function in Bolivian society, and community development so the Ayore can earn an honest income must go hand in hand with evangelism, church planning, and leadership training. We seek to address all of these needs as agents of Christ's love.
The health care provided by the ministry includes basic medical assistance, aid with hospitalization, labs and medicine, and training village health workers. We also help those who qualify to apply for free government health programs for diseases like tuberculosis. Lack of personnel currently limits our educational efforts. However, we do help families get the documents, clothing, and school supplies necessary for their children to attend school. Many IRA still only speak the IRA language, not Spanish. There is an urgent need for someone to work with a few IRA teachers to help them become effective in bilingual education. Most of the native teachers have less than a fourth grade education and have only meager resources. Community development, which includes teaching the dignity of work, is our third goal. We encourage the women to spend more time making their beautiful traditional hand-woven purses instead of resorting to prostitution or begging. We purchase these bags to offer for sale at our ministry office. We also encourage visitors to the villages to buy these true souvenirs of Bolivia. This is a first step toward finding productive ways for IRA families to support themselves. We've also been promoting agricultural projects.
Several different agricultural projects have been successful, but still require guidance and oversight from mission personnel. South America Mission continues to provide seed and basic assistance for those who prepare ground by themselves and truly want to provide for their families. We hope to partner with other missions in developing a sustainable project to make the best use of the natural resources available to the IRA on their own lands. In order to see this part of the vision fulfilled, we need people with skills in natural resources and environmental science. God has again opened a door to South America Mission to make His glory known among the Ayore. Please pray for the Ayore team and all those who feel called to give of their time and resources to serve these, the poorest of the poor. Pray, too, that God will raise up the people and the financial backing to keep this ministry alive. And after you pray, we hope that you will commit yourselves to keep on praying for and giving to this ministry, for a people despised and rejected by men, but loved by God, the Ayore of Bolivia.